Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Chris Weidenbar, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Major Graham Hales. We warmly welcome the delegation from Dell who are in attendance this evening, and we also warmly welcome a contingent from the Department of Defence, which includes officials from both the United States of America and Japan. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial and by students on behalf of Urquhart Park Primary School from Newington in Victoria. I now ask all who are able to please stand and join in singing the national anthem. Thank you. Students, you may be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's first World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway lands. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
G'day. Today we remember and pay tribute to Lieutenant Thomas George Taylor. Thomas Taylor was born in 1877 in Bungendore, New South Wales, the eldest son of Owen and Harriet Taylor. Little is known about his early life, other than that he had moved to the Southern Africa by the end of the 1890s. In October 1899, war broke out between the two Boer republics in the British Empire. Within a week of war being declared, Taylor had joined a local regular British unit known as Brabant's Horse. He served with this unit for almost a year, fighting Boer forces in the northeastern Cape Colony. In September, his time with the unit ended, and it appears that Taylor went back to Australia for a brief period. He soon chose to return to South Africa, this time with the 2nd New South Wales Mounted Rifles. In this unit, he was promoted to the rank of sergeant. For his good work with the unit, he was presented with a pipe from Queen Alexandra, the wife of the new British King, Edward VII. Taylor also served with the 3rd New South Wales Imperial Bushmen, in which unit he was commissioned as a lieutenant. At the outbreak of the First World War, Taylor was living with his wife Emma Jane in Indooroopilly, Queensland, and working on a farm. In December 1915, Taylor enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force in Brisbane. Because of his record of earlier service, he joined at the rank of sergeant. He trained in Australia for 6 months before sailing for England in May 1916 on the transport ship De Marenthes. His training continued in England, and he was commissioned as a 2nd lieutenant. In November, he sailed to France, where he completed officer training at the Anzac and Divisional Schools, and was promoted to the rank of lieutenant. In April 1917, Taylor joined his unit, the 41st Battalion, in the field in France. He saw action in the Battle of Messines in early June 1917. During this battle, British, Canadian and Australian miners detonated an enormous amount of explosives underneath the German positions and overran the survivors. During his time at the front, Taylor also participated in trench raids and became a well-liked officer to the men of the 41st Battalion. At the beginning of July, Taylor was in the support lines near the town of Warneton on the French and Belgian border, where he was struck by shrapnel in his legs and badly wounded. He was evacuated to the 2nd Australian Casualty Clearing Station to be treated, but he died of his wounds on the 5th of July 1917. He was 40 years old. Thomas Taylor is buried at Trois-Nebraux Cemetery in northern France, with more than 1,700 Commonwealth soldiers from the First World War. His grieving widow had the following epitaph inscribed on his headstone: "In loving memory of my dear husband, a duty nobly done." Lieutenant Thomas George Taylor is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Lieutenant Thomas George Taylor, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening.